Now, on the night of the 14th of April 2014, 276 mostly Christian female students were kidnapped from a secondary school by the Islamic terrorist group Boko Haram in the town of Chibok in Borno State of northeast Nigeria. 7 years after, Arise News visits Chibok and puts this report together in a quest for the continuous appeal for the release of the remaining girls still in captivity.
It is 7 years after the abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls, an act that commanded global attention at the time with the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. 7 years later, some of those girls are still missing. Lest the world forgets, Arise News returns to Chibok, documenting firsthand the experiences of families, relatives, and loved ones of these missing girls. And this is Chibok.
I'm fine and appreciate my life because I thank God. What God did for me, I really appreciate it. And I'm also praying for my sisters. They're still in captivities, and pray for them so that they can also release like me.
I thank God for my life because I have never think whether I'll come from that forest, to be sincere. If my sister saying they can, I have never think that maybe I would just die there, not coming to see my parents and my friends and all that. But for now, I thank God for my life, the way I'm doing. For now, since I came, I lived there 2 years. I don't know, I even forgot that, as if I've never go to school because I have lost many things. I can't even read or talk in English. For now, I can speak real English. Then when somebody talk to me, I can understand. Then I can respond the person. My only prayer for now, and I also thank for government, the way they take our responsibility doing school and other things. I thank for them, and I still urge them to continue being with us. In my prayer for now, the remaining girls that remain at that captivity, I pray for God to release them from those people to come out and continue their life the way I'm doing.
It's not easy. Since these adoptions, I'm in contact with this family, the parents, from that 2014 up to now 7 years. It's not easy. Many parents are in traumas. The government has tried their possible to secure at least in last October 2016, 21, then May 2017, 82. But yet, we have still remaining. So please, as the former local government chairman, during the adoption, I have a pressure on me, up to day by day. They don't know anybody. They used to call me. For this present 7 every year, when the 14th April is approaching, they call me, Bana, chairman, up to now. Some has reunited with their parents, our own up to now. What is government doing about it?
So you have a conversation with your daughter on the phone recorded. So can we just hear a bit of it?
Okay.
Alhamdulillah, ya kwana biyu. To sannu mama na shiru a kwanan nan.
There's someone who came and meet me that there's a woman that want to talk to you. I say, who is that woman? Say, Halima. I say, Halima? Who is that Halima? Where is she? From where? I say, okay. If it is true, call her with your number. From there, he called her, connect us, we talk, we greet each other. From there, she's crying. I myself am crying. I say, okay, if you are Halima, tell me, your junior brother and sister, call them one after another, their names. And she started calling them. I was still in the bush or in the town. She said, we are in the town, but I don't know where we are now. Okay, please be curious to know where you are and tell me.
What number did she use in calling you? Is it a Nigerian line?
Nigerian line. So we don't know what to do. We shall continue crying to the government and all the different organizations for helping you.
I'm not mad at Boko Haram. It is the government. They took our children. They know where our children are. They hid our children. Are we not in Nigeria? What did we do to them? We do menial jobs to pay our children's fees. They took them away when other students were on holidays. We have written statements. No one in government is listening to us. Not even the federal government. They don't want to hear or do anything about our kidnapped daughters. What happened? What did we do to the government? Are our daughters not children? Or is their school different from other schools?
As far as we know, are alive. And as far as I'm concerned, unless you can account for them, then we have to treat them as alive and in need of rescue. And I think that's an important part of what is happening. So the government cannot treat these girls as, I mean, we see some journalists saying only 5 of them are still alive. That wasn't the story when they were being rescued. But if there are only 5 of them alive, is that why they should be abandoned? That's why we say when we talk about bringing back our girls, we don't just say bring them back physically. We mean you have to bring them back to a society that will make them need to stay. Bring them back educationally, socially, culturally, emotionally, economically, educationally. You have to bring them back in every way that they need to be brought back.
You can't lose hope, surely. You have to remain hopeful. You have to hope that the girls are okay wherever they are and that they are safe wherever they are. And of course, you want to reunite them with their families. The sad reality is it's not just the 112 girls from Chibok who are still missing. This kidnapping has now become a thing. We hear almost on a daily basis of more children that have been kidnapped, not just girls but boys as well. So we need to keep rekindling the story. We can't forget these children, and we need to offer them and their families the respect that they are due.
Joining the Bring Back Our Girls movement on the first street protest on April 30, 2014 was simply because I'm a mother. And I have 2 children. I had a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old at the time that Chibok girls' abduction happened. And I felt if it was my children that were taken, definitely I'll be there. But a few weeks into it, I realized I was no longer there because of my children. I was there because of the little girl that I used to be. And that little girl was that child who wanted education badly, whose parents were poor, who would go to school in the morning without breakfast. Coming back home, she wasn't expecting lunch. That little girl who in 1991 was writing her SSC, the same exams that the Chibok girls were writing when they were abducted, and she was begging people to give her textbooks for her to be able to pass her exams, and she never got those textbooks. And I felt that if I had been taken at that time, my parents would never have been able to say anything because they are poor. And when you're poor in Nigeria, you're faceless, nameless, and voiceless.
Chibok girls was the reason I decided, contrary to everything I've ever believed, to go into politics. So you had countries like the US, you had countries like the UK, you had even Israel, and a couple of other countries that kicked in immediately and were interested in supporting Australia, that were interested in supporting the Nigerian government. You know what consistently came out to us as a movement during that period? The tentativeness of our government on a rescue operation for Chibok girls. Tentativeness, a lack of decisiveness, missed opportunities, a governmental system that was so ineffectual and leadership that was absent to really make the tough calls.
This was a story, as you mentioned in your introduction, that not only gripped Nigeria, but really ricocheted across the world. It was a seminal moment in the politics of Nigeria, but it was also a really important moment in the history of social media and the internet. This was the first hashtag anywhere that ignited a military intervention. Now, 7 years later, as you mentioned, the story remains relevant, not just because so many, 112 of the girls, have not yet come home, but because we're again seeing the kind of insecurity in northern Nigeria where school children are becoming targets, and we've seen mass kidnapping in classrooms. So this story is still relevant, but really the two most important parts of this story have not yet been told. The one part is what happened to the girls inside captivity, the girls who were able to win their freedom. How did they survive? And that really is a kind of unbelievable story of bravery, of sisterhood, and survival. And the other story is about the rescue effort, much of which was secret, much of which was classified, and much of which was unsuccessful.
You cannot address safe schools in an environment of insecurity. If the overall environment is insecure, then how are you going to isolate the schools and implement safe schools initiatives? It almost doesn't matter what you do within the school if the school is an oasis in the midst of conflict. And we've created increasing areas of conflict. As the ungoverned spaces in Nigeria expand, any attempt to create a safe school is an exercise in futility.
The government are trying, but there is no sincerity, no conscience. People are not honest, and people are biased. People are self-centered because it didn't happen to them. It's not their children. They don't feel it. They don't feel it. It's someone's a peasant woman in a hamlet. Is her daughter. It's not a senator's daughter. It's not a governor's daughter. It's not a president's daughter. You understand? But this is someone's daughter that was a mother took for 9 months. Like one of the women, she had 13 kids. She lost 12. It was only that girl that was left for her. And the girl is still in captivity. You understand? So it's not their daughters.
Staying on the 7 years of Chibok girls' abduction, which occurred on the night of 14th of April 2014. And the Rice correspondent Amaka Okoye, who was in Chibok recently, now joins us from our Abuja studios. Amaka, just watching excerpts of that documentary, I know a team, including yourself, has been putting together, very emotional and heartbreaking. I listened to some of the parents you spoke to say, all we have is hope they hold on to, but I also hear them say blame. That's the blame game. They blame the government, but not the insurgents. Amaka, if you could hear me.
Adesua, yes, I can hear you. Indeed, all they have is hope. But again, Adesua, we all do know that hope is not a strategy. And yes, there's also that blame. You know, I mean, when I went into Chibok, it's a couple of emotions. So there is the anger, there is the pain, there is the helplessness of, you know, what next is going to happen. And so when you talk about that bit of blame, is the fact that, look, they are saying, look, you've been able to rescue others. Why have you not rescued our own children? There were missed opportunities. What happened? Why did the Nigerian government not keep to its word? You recall that when President Muhammadu Buhari came up, he said he was just going to, you know, deal with insurgency in 6 months, that all of these stories of terrorism was going to end. Why did he fail? And the fact that nobody is speaking to them even makes it more difficult. So that level of silence, it looks like, you know, the Nigerian government has moved on. People in authority, they've moved on. But these parents have not moved on. And that's why it's 7 years, but it's been 7 years of, heartbreak, of pain for most of them. You can easily, when the situation is not particularly once, it's easy to go over it. But these parents are saying, we can't go over it. If the Nigerian government has forgotten, we have not forgotten. We sent our children into school. And then on the 9th or 14th of April 2014, we can't find our children. And up until today, most of them are waiting for the return of their children. It is very hard to hear a parent look at you and say, will they return? Do you know if they are going to come back? Are my children, are they alive? Most of these parents, remember, don't have not just one kid, one daughter. Some of them have more than one daughter, and they do not know. So it is hard for them to even move on. A parent said to me, look, if they had told me that they are dead, my daughter is dead, I would have moved on by now, 7 years after. But it's difficult not knowing the situation. And so today is a tough day. It's going to be a very tough one for them. I've been speaking to some of the parents since yesterday night, and I can't bring all of the emotions to you on television, but I must say, Adeswa, it is tough to recall that on this day, their children, were taken, and 7 years on, we're still talking about them, not knowing truly how many of them are left and in what condition they are in, Adeswa.
Okay, Amaka, it almost feels painful to have to drag this out, but I really must ask the question, what was it that stood out for you about the parents and the girls you met who had escaped or been rescued? And what was it that stood out for you about them? And what questions do you have still unanswered from your journey back to Chibok?
It's a very tough one. I can't but say that there is faith, a level of faith that they have shown and expressed that stood out for me. So particularly Mama Yana, who says, for instance, she washes her daughter's clothes every day. It's a symbolic action for her. She believes that someday her daughter is going to be, come back alive. I particularly asked her, do you believe she's going to come back? Not because I don't share in that faith, that's what all of us want, but looking at the situation, do you believe? What does your heart say? And she said to me, see, my daughter is going to come back, and broke down in tears. I share in that faith, Ekene, but again, practically speaking, we know that faith is not enough. And that's why when I went in there, I also saw the frustration of parents who are saying, why is it most difficult to be able to bring back these girls? Some of these parents actually went into Dapchi when Dapchi happened. They said they needed to show support to the parents of these girls in Dapchi because they had seen this, Chibok first happened, so they wanted to show support. And right before them, some of these girls were brought back. And a parent looks at you and says, look, I saw them return the girls from Dapchi. What has happened? Kagara, they returned them. That's in Kagara in Katsina, in Niger State rather. Kankara in Katsina, they returned them. Jengebe, we saw they returned them in Zamfara. Kaduna, yes, we know that 10, have been released. What has happened to ours? And so that question is the same question that we are asking, on behalf of these people. And I believe that's why, Arise News, we had to go in there. Lest the world forget. It looks like the world has moved on. The Nigerian government has moved on seemingly, but parents cannot move on. And so this conversation, we must still have this conversation. The world must not forget the Chibok girls. And that is, what they are saying today. They are gathered already, and praying, having that memorial, so to say, and praying and hoping and trusting that they will be back. But above the prayers and the hope, what next? Should we expect a response from the government? Parents say that it's most painful when you've not had anything from the government. Every attempt to reach, for instance, the state governor or even the federal authority, none has yielded any result. And it's so heartbreaking. Chibok girls must not be forgotten. And it shouldn't just be the hashtag, bring back our girls. They should return. They should know, what is going on with them. Those who are alive, how many of them are left? They need to be back and reunited. Again, if I speak about the girls that we spoke to, two were released by, when the 22 were released by the government and 82, 2 of them are part of that, and then 1 who escaped. And what this whole experience has done for the girls is that they've become so bonded. So when the students, these girls are talking about the others who are still in captivity, they said, our sisters, we want our sisters back. We are grateful that we are alive. We are grateful that we can, talk, we are free where we are, but we do know that a part of us are still missing. Some of these girls are still missing. So we want them. It's a collaboration. It's a kind of joint voice, collective voice is calling, that these girls must not be forgotten and that they have to be reunited, and, that we see efforts that is tangible and concrete enough, especially from government, to see efforts, to know that something is happening, and indeed to bring them back to safety. Ekene.
Indeed, Amaka, that must be the message that should resonate today. Until they are back and reunited with their family, we simply cannot forget the Chibok girls. But let me ask you quickly, what's been the engagement of the community of Chibok with the government since this abduction? We know it was in the limelight, it got international attention. It's been campaign promises for even the current administration as early as 2015. But what has been the government's engagement on this issue?
And that's why, I wish that we had a different answer. I wish that we can say, yes, there is something most tangible that the community members can rely on. Unfortunately, from parents, I spoke to 9 parents, and what is standing out for them, what all of them, they've said to me in different places when I met them, is the fact that they are not hearing anything from the government. Even when government said maybe speak to others and not speak to them directly, they say they are working on it. They are doing something. What exactly is it that you're doing that we don't know? That disengagement from the government with the people, has remained a very tough one for them. So when they say, look, we've tried, even last year, they were almost not allowed to hold the memorial in the school. They couldn't go in close to the school because, as you do know, it's now occupied by the military. We ourselves actually made efforts to say we want to go into that school to see what it is. We were not allowed. We spoke to everybody we could speak to, the powers that be. We tried through the commissioner, the permanent secretary, and reached out to the governor, and we were not allowed access, to the school. This is just we being media. How much more the parents? So there's not been a lot of, connection and engagement, which is why it makes it very difficult for parents. When parents look at you and say, what have we done wrong? Why are they not even speaking to us? They've made efforts to go to the government house, and several times they've been turned away. One parent said the government don't even like us. They don't even want to hear about us again. They don't even want us to speak about our own children. The government can move on, but they cannot move on because it is a part of them. It is their children that is sent to school, and they are not back. Until they are back, they are still expecting that the government will speak to them. So there's not much of engagement. Based on what I felt, I heard on ground, and the people I saw and spoke to, and that's a tough one because you would expect that there should be a level of engagement, some support, communication. They understand the procedures. They understand what the government is doing. They understand what efforts have been put in place. But unfortunately, not so much of that have they heard, which is what makes it even more frustrating and difficult being kept in the dark, if you like, Adesua.
Okay, Amaka, thank you so much for bringing that frontline viewpoint across to us. We really do appreciate your having gone there and reached out to those parents firsthand. Stacey.